Hey guys, tonight we sail directly into the middle of a story where, strangely enough, the hero is not a prince or a warrior or a grand philosopher, but a root vegetable. Yes, tonight's tale begins with a shipwreck, ends in national obsession, and contains more mashed potatoes than any bedtime story has the right to. Picture this rolling waves a ship full of tubers in a cold, skeptical country that accidentally falls in love with potatoes. You've just wandered into one of the most delightful slow burns in food history. The year, let's say the late 1700s, somewhere between powdered wigs and guillotines. The sea is rough, and the French cargo ship you're imagining right now isn't particularly lucky. It's not even carrying something glamorous. No jewels, no spices, no revolutionary pamphlets. Just sacks and sacks of humble potatoes. Potatoes that were supposed to be fed to livestock, tossed into prison stew, or dumped unceremoniously into experimental gardens. Instead, they'll end up changing lives. And spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. Not without suddenly craving fries or wondering why potatoes ever needed a publicist in the first place. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're still awake enough, drop a comment with your location and the current time I love seeing, where in the world you all tune in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on the deck of a creaking French ship, the sails flapping hard against a sky the color of old pewter. The air smells like salt wet wood and something vaguely earthy. That last one, that's the potatoes. Crates and sacks of them packed below deck, shifting every time the ship does. You'd think they'd smell worse, honestly, but they're just there. Lumpy, innocent, unloved. In France, they're seen as the food of the desperate or the imprisoned, and many people don't even believe they're safe to eat. The waves pitch higher. A sailor stumbles. A barrel of something useful, salted cod. Maybe wine rolls across the deck. No one panics, but everyone looks worried. The captain curses softly, muttering about the coast. Somewhere near Normandy, the wind has picked up, and it's clear the weather isn't playing fair tonight. The ship has no treasure, but it does have one thing that matters more than gold when you're starving calories. That night, the storm hits properly. Thunder, sideways rain sails ripping like old linen. And then the crack. The horrible, unforgettable crunch of wood against rock. You're not sure if the hull splits before or after the screaming starts, but you know one thing, this ship is not staying afloat. By morning, the wreckage washes ashore. On a quiet, rocky stretch of French coastline, farmers and fishermen find the remains. Not gold, not silk, just hundreds of potatoes strewn across the shore like muddy eggs from the ocean itself. The villagers are cold, poor, hungry, and deeply suspicious because these are potatoes. And no one here trusts potatoes, but desperation makes the palate adventurous. Someone, probably the hungriest among them, builds a fire, boils a pot, peels one. Maybe they whisper a prayer, maybe they don't. But by nightfall, someone eats the first one, and then someone else. And then everyone is asking the same question in quiet disbelief. Wait, is this good? Historians still argue whether this particular wreck was the exact beginning of France's potato renaissance or just a convenient metaphor, but the timing fits. And so does the imagery: a battered ship, a coastline starved of hope, and a pile of underground vegetables that no one wanted until they tasted them. And just like that, something begins to shift, not quickly, not publicly, but in kitchens, on clay stoves, in hungry bellies. The potato is about to become a quiet star in a very dramatic century. You wake to the sound of gulls screeching overhead and the sight of a very muddy French beach. The tide has gone out, but the wreckage is still here. Wooden beams split like kindling canvas, tangled in seaweed, and scattered across the sand. The soggy, half-buried remains of a potato shipment. Crates split open, sacks torn apart by surf and salt. And in every crevice and pool, there's that same knobby little shape, round, rough-skinned, slightly obscene, the humble potato. You're not the only one wandering the wreckage. Villagers have come down from the hills and farms to pick through what the sea has gifted or cursed. Some are gathering timber, others look for salvageable nails or tools. But more than a few are staring warily at the potatoes. One boy kicks one gently. It rolls. No explosion, no demonic mist, just a thud. Another girl picks one up and sniffs it like it might bite. It doesn't. You hear murmurs. Cattle food, witch's root, rotten things. They're not wrong, not entirely. For centuries, Europeans viewed potatoes with suspicion. They weren't native. They weren't elegant. They grew underground. And they weren't mentioned in the Bible. That last part really bothered people. If God didn't talk about it, could it even be trusted? In some villages, priests warned that potatoes caused leprosy. Not through science, of course. Just vibes. But hunger doesn't care about theology. And it's winter, and the last harvest was thin. So eventually someone, maybe a widow, maybe an apprentice, with nothing to lose, starts cooking them. They cut off the green spots. They boil, they bake, they mash with salt, and if they're lucky, a bit of goat milk. The result's soft, starchy, surprisingly filling. The villagers begin to talk, quietly, carefully. Not about miracles exactly, but about how no one's gotten sick. How it fills the belly better than old bread. How even the youngest child ate it without crying. And that's when things start to shift. Not in a flash, but like snow melting off a roof. Bit by bit, pot by pot. There's a farmer named Gerard who tries planting a few. He digs up a corner of land he'd given up on too rocky for wheat, too dry for beans. He buries a few wrinkled spuds and waits. Months later, he finds a crop that practically duplicated itself underground. No fuss, no disease, just abundance. And Gerard, who once scoffed at potatoes, now builds a new cellar to store them. Other villagers notice. They ask questions. What soil do you use? Do you water it much? Can you eat the leaves? No, never eat the leaves. Very bad idea. Knowledge spreads. So does the admiration. The same people who thought potatoes were devilish now argue over the best way to cook them. Someone invents a simple stew. Someone else discovers frying. Then someone no one remembers who decides they taste better with a pinch of salt and a lot of butter. Culinary history is being made one spoonful at a time. Still, there's pushback. The village priest refuses to bless potato fields. A local doctor claims they weaken the blood. Old women say they'll never eat something that grows in the dark. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were born of genuine fear or just the natural resistance to anything new. But in homes where hunger lingers like smoke, the logic is simple: potatoes are food, and food is survival. One afternoon, a traveling merchant stops in town. He hears the villagers talking about these strange, starchy roots. He tries one, then another. By nightfall, he's bartering his goods for a sack of them. Might be good trade in Rouen, he mutters. And with that, potatoes begin their journey inland. You walk through the village and smell them now, earthy and warm from clay ovens. You hear someone humming as they mash them. Children play with small ones like marbles. A dog steals one from a basket and trots away proudly. The fear hasn't disappeared, but it's shrunk, replaced by something more powerful: curiosity. By the end of the season, the shipwreck is mostly forgotten. The wood has been repurposed, the sails turned into cloaks. The sea has taken back what it wants. But the potatoes, they've stayed. Planted, cooked, eaten, stored. And in the most unexpected way, they've begun to knit this little community together, one knobby, muddy root at a time. You sit on a stone wall and watch smoke drift from chimneys. In one cottage, a man lifts a steaming bowl to his lips. In another, a child holds up a fork proudly. It's not celebration. Not yet. But it's comfort. It's enough. And in a world where comfort is rare, the potato is starting to feel miraculous. You wake to the smell of something roasting, rich, savory, and vaguely nutty. It floats through the narrow alleys of the village like a trail of breadcrumbs. Someone somewhere has mastered the art of cooking a potato just right. You follow your nose past woodpiles and patched fences until you find it a squat cottage with thin curls of steam slipping out beneath the thatch. Inside, an old man is grinning over a clay pan, the golden tops of sliced potatoes hissing in a layer of butter. You're pretty sure you've stumbled into culinary history. He offers you a bite, and you take it without hesitation, crispy on the outside, soft within. Your brain says simple, but your taste buds say profound. It's not just food, it's possibility. This village, once held together by nothing but shared hardship, now has something else to talk about, argue over, experiment with. And this little tuber, once dismissed as devil food, is becoming the village's unofficial mascot. Gerard the farmer is now the potato guy. People bring him spuds they found growing wild. They ask about planting times. He has theories, techniques. He's not a scientist, but he acts like one. He's even tried slicing them thinner and cooking them on flat stones. A few kids call them crisps. He doesn't know it yet, but he's centuries early to the snack aisle. The transformation isn't just culinary, it's social. The poorest family on the hill now hosts small dinners, potato only, but always shared. Visitors passing through leave with a pouch of them traded for trinkets or news. Potatoes become currency, celebration, even ritual. A baby is born and someone gifts the family a fresh harvest. A wedding is toasted with potato broth. It's weird, but it works. One rainy afternoon, the village priest surprises everyone by including potatoes in a blessing. He claims he's read a new interpretation that all roots given by God are good. The congregation murmurs in approval, some crossing themselves as if to be safe. Historians still argue whether this shift came from genuine reflection or simply from the fact that he too had grown fond of potato stew. You suspect the latter. More fields are cleared. Rocky corners, once abandoned, now sport little rows of green leaves. Gerard builds a sort of garden wall with sticks to keep out curious goats. The children help him water. They hum silly songs with the word potato in every verse. It's not just food anymore, it's something to belong to. Still, not everyone is sold. An older woman named Yvette refuses to eat them. I saw one twitch once she says completely seriously, it had a lump like an eye. You try explaining that yes, potatoes have eyes, and no, they're not watching her. She glares at you like you're part of the conspiracy. You leave her a basket anyway. She doesn't thank you, but the next morning, the basket is empty. You walk through the market 1 week later and see something wild, a traveling merchant selling potato dishes to townsfolk from other villages. They're curious. Some are skeptical. One whispers, "Aren't those just for pigs?" But she tries a slice chews thoughtfully and asks for seconds. The merchant winks. People laughed, he says. Now they trade me wool for stew. You nod. That's how revolutions begin quietly, one bowl at a time. One night, a group of villagers gathers outside around a fire. Someone brings potatoes wrapped in leaves. Someone else brings salt. There's laughter, warmth. For the first time in a while, no one talks about hunger or loss. Just recipes. A boy suggests stuffing them with mushrooms. An older man swears by garlic. A girl proposes honey. You blink, potato dessert. Maybe that's the next miracle. You sit back and let the fire crackle. The stars above are clear. The air smells like smoke and cooked skin and butter. And for the first time in a long while, this place feels like it has something to look forward to. The potatoes are here. They're loved. And they're not going anywhere. And as you drift off the fire, warming your toes, and the last crisp of a roasted slice lingering on your tongue, you realize something strange. No one planned this. No decree. No law. Just one shipwreck, one hungry village, and a lot of trial and error. The potato didn't conquer with force, it just stayed, and fed, and waited. You wake to the sound of bells, slow and steady. Not a call to church, but a sign that the market has opened. It's early, the sun not yet full over the hills, and yet the town square is already buzzing with the kind of sleepy excitement that only comes with something new. You wander past the stalls, baskets of wool coils, of rope jugs of milk, and then you see it a modest wooden cart stacked with burlap sacks. A hand-painted sign hangs above it, scrawled in cheerful ink. One word, Pomies. It's Gerard's stand. He's gotten official, or as official as you can get in a place where taxes are still paid in chickens. People are lining up, not just from this village, but from neighboring ones too. Some are skeptical arms crossed muttering about livestock feed. But most are curious, hungry, and already a little obsessed. You drift closer and listen to the bartering. 1 sack of potatoes for 2 cheeses, a dozen for a length of blue cloth, a bowl of stew in exchange for help unloading the next cart. Gerard beams. I don't even know what I'm doing. He laughs, but I know it's working. A woman behind him mashes potatoes with a wooden spoon and hands out samples. You take a bite. Still warm, still magical. The word spreads further than you'd expect. A visiting soldier eats 3 helpings and jokes that he might marry the cook. A priest from another village samples a roasted wedge and mutters something about writing it into next week's sermon. One old merchant just stares into the distance after trying a fried round, as if he's having a minor buttery epiphany. You don't blame him. And that's when things get weirder in the best possible way. People start naming potato dishes, giving them identities. Fricassee de terre says one woman lifting a pot. Earth fricassee. Another suggests rondelle bénie blessed rounds. A child calls them moon slices. It doesn't matter what they're called. What matters is that everyone's talking about them, eating them, sharing them, even pretending to compete over who makes them best. Local traditions start to form. One family now ends every meal with a single roasted potato split 4 ways. To remember the cold year, the father says. A couple plants a new patch for each child born. A baker starts experimenting with potato flour in his bread. It's denser, a little chewy, but it keeps longer and sells faster. People begin to wonder if potatoes can do this. What else can they fix? Historians still argue whether this rapid adoption was an isolated cultural fluke or something bigger, an early sign of shifting food consciousness. Some claim the wreck was symbolic. Others say it was all Parmentier's long-game PR plan. But most agree, once the French poor got a taste, they didn't look back. In this little corner of the world, food wasn't just about calories anymore. It was about control, choice. A future with more than just gray broth and hard crusts. One afternoon, a traveling scholar visits the village. He's polite, curious, a little condescending. He tries the stew, then the baked slices, then the mashed heap with butter and sage. His notes grow more enthusiastic. By nightfall, he's writing a full page on the potential of underground root vegetables in rural stabilization. You don't understand most of it, but you watch his eyebrows rise with each bite, and that says enough. You stroll past the fields now, and what used to be neglected land is patchworked with new growth. Not just potatoes now. People are experimenting again, turnips, carrots, onions. But the potato rows are the thickest, the proudest. Even the birds seem to hop differently through them, as if they know not to mess with the village's new favorite. At a village gathering, someone proposes a holiday. For the harvest, they say. For the wreck. For luck. They settle on a day in early fall. Bonfires are lit. Potatoes are baked in ash. Children dress up with burlap capes and carry tiny wooden forks like scepters. It's absurd. It's joyful. It's exactly what the village needed, and beneath it all, the potato remains humble. Never flashy, never dramatic, just always there, sturdy, comforting, dependable. The food equivalent of a quiet friend who brings soup when you're sick and never asks for the bowl back. You sit by the fire that night, a warm slice in hand, and listen to the quiet laughter around you. Someone plays a flute. Someone sings a low, rolling song about la pomme de la terre. The sky above is velvet black, and for once there's no storm coming. The shipwreck is a memory now weathered wood on a cold beach, but the thing it brought, that stayed, not just in the stomachs of villagers, but in their stories, their routines, their hope. And you, potato in hand, grin in the dark. Somehow, against all odds, this is how it started. You wake to the low, rolling hum of a market morning, the kind of sound that slips beneath the door before your eyes are even open. You stretch, sit up, and the smell hits you sweet, earthy, familiar. Potatoes again, but not just the boiled or mashed kind. Today, it's layered, spiced, maybe even baked into a pie. Yes, someone has gotten creative. And from the chorus of murmured praise outside, it's going over extremely well. You step outside to find the village square more animated than usual. Baskets line the stone walls. Laughter rises in bursts. There's a woman with a crate of tiny potato cakes. A man offering something crisp and golden from a pan sizzling over open flame. The children buzz around with smudged cheeks and full mouths. You catch the scent of rosemary, then garlic. Someone has clearly been experimenting. And apparently, they've been generous with the butter. It's easy to forget how recently this same village met potatoes with suspicion. How people once side-eyed them, whispered warnings, refused to plant them. Now they're trading recipes like gossip. You overhear two farmers arguing about the best soil depth for tubers. Not too deep, one insists. Let them feel the sun in their bones. You decide not to mention that potatoes don't actually have bones. The festival, the one born from a joke and a baked root, is now officially called Le Jour du Naufrage, the day of the wreck. It's part gratitude, part absurd pageant, and all potato. This year, someone's made masks, simple ones carved from bark and painted with cheerful, spud-like faces. There's a small parade, a fiddler. Someone brings a puppet show that tells the story of the shipwreck, complete with potato sacks for sales. It is frankly adorable. By afternoon, the games begin. Sack races, a contest for the heaviest potato, an improvised event called Guess What's in This Mash. You're not sure if the winning entry has apples, onions, or something more chaotic, but people cheer anyway. A boy wins a ribbon for carving a potato into something vaguely resembling a pig. He insists it's art. No one argues. Underneath all the silliness, though, there's something tender. You see it in the older folks who bring quiet offerings, candles placed in hollowed-out potatoes left at the edge of the square, where a small memorial plaque now sits. Just a stone with 3 carved words, from sea salvation. No names, no explanation, just remembrance. And the thing is, this really was salvation. You speak to a man named Louis who survived last winter only by boiling a single potato 3 times, stretching it across 4 days. He laughs as he says it, but there's a shadow behind his smile. Potatoes didn't just feed this village, they steadied it, made it resilient, gave it enough to share. Historians still argue whether stories like Louis' are exaggerations, tales polished by time. But when you look into his eyes, you know it doesn't really matter. What matters is how he remembers it. The potato wasn't just food, it was company. A friend during a season when the fire nearly went out. Nearby, a woman demonstrates how to use dried potato peels to dye fabric. The cloth turns a soft, warm yellow, like sunlight through butter. Someone else shares how they sprout potato eyes in jars over the fireplace to prep for planting. The kids gather around to watch. You can tell they've done this before. As the sun lowers, long tables are laid with patchwork cloth. Dishes are passed. Someone clinks a mug and gives a short, slightly awkward speech. To the wreck that fed us, he says. To the root that stayed. It's not elegant, but it's real. Everyone lifts their cups, and then come the toasts. Loud, warm, and increasingly chaotic. To boiled, to fried, to potatoes that look like uncles. Even the priest offers one to unlikely blessings. You nod in agreement. That might just be the best way to sum it all up. You sit under a tree at the edge of the square stomach, pleasantly full, watching the fires burn low. Somewhere behind you, someone begins to hum. The melody is new, but the rhythm feels old. Like something sung before language, before legend, before the idea of a potato ever crossed an ocean. And you realize that the wreck wasn't just a beginning for food, it was a beginning for something quieter, something softer. This village didn't just survive, it found something to hold on to, something to pass down, something that said, even in ruin, there is warmth, there is flavor, there is life. You wake to the sound of footsteps outside your window, soft, deliberate, and surprisingly early. Curious, you throw on a cloak and step out into the cool morning mist. A small group of villagers is making its way down the path that leads to the lower fields. They're carrying baskets, hoes, and bundles of straw. At first glance, it looks like a typical day of planting, but you notice something different. The baskets are full of seed potatoes, each one marked with a small charcoal X. This isn't just planting, this is legacy. You follow the group as they fan out into the rocky, narrow fields below the village. It's quiet, almost reverent. People speak in low voices like they're in a chapel. The soil is still damp from last night's rain, and the air smells like wet leaves and pine. One by one, the villagers kneel, place their seed potatoes gently into the ground, and cover them with care. It's not a ceremony exactly, but it feels like one. At the edge of the field stands an older man in a patched brown tunic, one of the original shipwreck survivors. He doesn't say much, just watches. When someone offers him a shovel, he shakes his head. I planted enough, he says with a faint smile. Time for the rest of you to eat. The mood shifts later in the morning when a new figure arrives in the village. A man with clean boots, a leather-bound journal, and the kind of posture that suggests he has opinions. He's an official of what exactly no one's sure, but he asks a lot of questions. How did this start? How many acres? Have any priests denounced it publicly? You can almost hear the subtext. Is this respectable yet? The villagers answer politely but briefly. One woman offers him a bowl of stew. He tries it. His eyes widen. He finishes the whole thing and writes something down. Remarkable, he mutters. Not elegant, but sustaining. He says it like a compliment. Sort of. Then he asks for a copy of the recipe. Historians still debate when the potato went from peasant food to public darling in France. Some credit Antoine Augustin Parmentier, a soldier-turned-pharmacist who championed the spud like it owed him rent. Others say it was the work of ordinary villages like this one quietly changing the nation one root at a time. The truth, as always, probably lives in the overlap. And speaking of Parmentier, he's on his way. Not here yet, but word is he's traveling through the region, inspecting potato fields and converting skeptics with charm charts and cooked samples. The villagers aren't sure what to expect. Some are nervous, others excited. A few are preparing a feast just in case he drops by. Later that evening, a group of teenagers gathers by the old wreck site. Not much is left, just a few timbers and a faded stretch of beach. But they've brought candles and stories. They sit in a circle, each one sharing something they've heard from their parents. One girl says her grandfather swore the ship was cursed. A boy insists it was divine providence. Another suggests half-jokingly that the potatoes themselves wanted to be found. You sit on a flat stone and watch the tide roll in. The waves carry no answers, just sea foam and salt, and the memory of something lost. Or perhaps something given. A small voice pipes up. What if it never wrecked? Everyone turns. It's the youngest among them. What if it just arrived where it was needed? No one replies, but the silence says everything. It doesn't really matter how it happened, only that it did. Back in the village, the fires are lit again. Not for festival this time, but for comfort. A new dish is being passed around, sliced potatoes layered with onions and cream, baked until golden at the edges. It doesn't have a name yet, but someone suggests gratin. It sticks. And through it all, the potato remains unchanged. Humble, helpful, not flashy, but always there, like a friend who never forgets your birthday, even if you forget theirs. You fall asleep that night with the smell of smoke in your hair and the faint taste of butter on your tongue. The stars above blink slowly, like they're settling into bed too. Somewhere far off, you hear the slow creak of a cart on the road. Maybe it's Parmentier. Maybe it's just another merchant chasing the story of a shipwreck and a tuber that changed everything. Either way, the path is clear now. The fields are full, and tomorrow there will be more to dig, more to share, more to grow. You wake to the sharp smell of ink and old leather. The village is unusually quiet this morning, but not in a bad way. It's the kind of quiet that means something's happening, something important enough that everyone's holding their breath. You step outside and spot him immediately, a man in a crisp navy coat with a silver-rimmed monocle and a notebook that seems to absorb everything around it. Antoine Augustin Parmentier has arrived. He's not what the villagers expected. No powdered wig, no fancy retinue, just clear eyes, quick steps, and a sort of contagious enthusiasm that makes you want to believe in whatever he's talking about, even if it's just tubers. He examines the potato plots like they're holy relics, stooping low to inspect the leaves, brushing dirt away from the roots with gloved hands. He doesn't flinch when the soil stains his fingers. You follow him as he moves from plot to plot, nodding thoughtfully, asking questions like, how many grew per plant? And how often did you water them? One woman offers him a spoonful of her family's now famous potato soup. He tastes it, pauses, then nods slowly. This could convince a king, he says. She blushes, beaming. At the center of the village, a table is set up for him. Not fancy, just a plank balanced across two barrels covered with dishes from every household. Baked, mashed, fried, stewed. Potato cakes with honey, sliced and dried like chips. A casserole with cream and herbs that someone's calling experimental. Parmentier tries everything and takes notes. Always more notes. When he finally speaks to the gathered crowd, it's with quiet conviction, not pomp. He tells them about his time in a Prussian prison camp, how he survived on potatoes when nothing else was given, how he returned to France only to find people too proud or too scared to eat the very thing that had kept him alive. You are wiser than Paris, he says, and the crowd murmurs in delight. He's not just here to praise, he's here to learn. He asks for planting patterns, seasonal tips, even the story of the shipwreck. People crowd in to tell him. You notice that even the old woman who once claimed potatoes had eyes too intelligent to be trusted is leaning in to listen now. She's got mashed potato on her chin and doesn't care one bit. Parmentier pulls out something new from his satchel, a bound booklet. Inside are diagrams, instructions, and hand-drawn maps for how to cultivate potatoes effectively across different soil types. He gives copies to the village leaders with a solemn promise that more are being printed. This, he says, is how we free the poor from hunger. It's not a speech, it's a mission statement. Historians still argue whether Parmentier was a true visionary or just a tireless opportunist. Some say he exaggerated the benefits of potatoes. Others insist he played the long game, wrapping science in just enough romance to win over a skeptical nation. But standing here now, watching how he listens, how he shares, how he cares, you suspect his heart really is in it. After the presentation, he walks the village alone. You trail behind just close enough to hear him humming. He stops by the memorial stone and places a single small potato on top. No words, just the gesture. Then he kneels beside a child planting a sprout and whispers, "That's the future." As dusk falls, Parmentier joins the villagers for a simple dinner. No tablecloths, no fanfare, just roasted slices, bread, and wine. He toasts to survival and raises his glass. Everyone joins him. It's quiet afterward, not somber, just thoughtful. Like everyone's aware they're in the middle of something bigger than they imagined. You sit beside the fire, watching shadows flicker across faces full of warmth and food and pride. And you realize this village, this story, this shipwreck, it's not just about potatoes. It's about people deciding that what once made them ashamed now makes them strong. That resilience can be roasted. That history sometimes grows underground until someone is brave enough to pull it up. You wake with Parmentier's voice still echoing in your head. Something about the way he said freedom through food has lodged itself there like a tune you can't shake. Outside, the village feels different. Not because of anything visible, but because something settled in the air. Not just the usual smoke and starch, but resolve. That rare sense that something has been set in motion, and no one quite knows where it'll stop. You walk to the village edge where Gerard is already at work. He's got a new notebook, one gifted by Parmentier, and he's using it to track soil quality, sprouting days, and inexplicably names for every potato patch. This one's Louise, he says, pointing to a line of bright leaves. Because she always brings me salt. You don't question it, you just nod. Farming, it seems, has become personal. Elsewhere, kids are drawing potatoes on doors, on tree trunks, even on the side of a chicken coop. One has made a potato puppet. Another is trying to teach hers to dance. You wonder if Parmentier anticipated this level of enthusiasm. You suspect he didn't, but would absolutely approve. The villagers gather that afternoon to organize something new, a seed co-op. They're no longer just growing for themselves. They're growing to share, trade, multiply. A man from the next valley has arrived on foot, hoping to learn the potato ways. He's greeted like royalty, then promptly put to work digging trenches. It's not all smooth sailing. You overhear a tense conversation at the bakery, someone worrying about overplanting, another raising the fear that potatoes might crowd out traditional crops. We can't live on them alone, someone says. But even that concern carries a quiet compliment. No one's asking if potatoes are useful anymore, only how best to balance them. At supper, the conversation shifts to recipes again. I grated one, someone says, and fried it like bread. A young girl pipes up, I buried mine in ash and forgot about it. But when I found it, it was delicious. An older man tells everyone he once saw a potato shaped like Napoleon's hat. This isn't a joke. He draws it in the dirt. Everyone agrees it definitely looked like a hat. You wander to the parsonage, half curious if the priest is still on board. To your surprise, he's in the garden planting a new row of tubers beside the herbs. It's good stewardship, he says when you ask. Besides, even Job would have liked potatoes. You suspect that's not strictly scriptural, but you're not going to argue with him. Historians still debate whether the church's support for the potato was genuine conviction or a clever adaptation to public enthusiasm. Some suggest sermons were updated to include metaphors about humble nourishment and roots of salvation. You've even heard rumors of a hymn simple and repetitive, meant for harvest festivals. You hum a bit of it, now half remembered, half invented, "Blessed be the root that feeds in field and storm and need." That night, someone hangs a small sign in the square official potato count, 12 Orusi 42 sprouts and climbing. No one knows who's counting, no one asks, but everyone stops to look. The children cheer, the adults chuckle, and the next morning, someone scribbled 12,180 over it in charcoal. You catch Parmentier preparing to leave. His pack is light, but his eyes scan the village like he's trying to memorize every detail. He kneels to tie his boots, and a child hands him a small, misshapen potato. He accepts it with gravity, like it's a medal of honor. For Paris, the girl says. He nods. For everywhere, he replies. Before he goes, he turns to Gerard and hands him a folded piece of parchment. They'll write to you, he says. Not just farmers, ministers, doctors. You'll need to explain how it started. Gerard blinks. It started with a wreck, he says. It started with hunger. Parmentier smiles. Exactly. You watch as he disappears down the road, his silhouette shrinking into the horizon trailed by the first gold streaks of evening. The fields rustle in the breeze, and the fires are being lit again. The smell of roasting fills the air, but this time it's mixed with something else. Ambition. You sit beside Gerard under the big tree where everything seems to end up. He's holding the parchment, reading it slowly. He doesn't say much. Just this. We're not just surviving now. We're inventing. And you realize he's right. What began as sustenance is now something else entirely. Culture, identity, even pride. And it all started with a mistake, a storm, a crash, and a village that dared to try what no one else would. You wake to rain pattering gently on the roof, the kind of rain that seeps rather than storms. It's steady, unhurried, and exactly what the fields need. You sit by the window with a warm mug of something vaguely herbal and watch as water glistens on potato leaves running down the stalks in thin silver lines. From the window alone, you can count at least 5 different varieties growing in the village now. Some squat and round, others long and pinkish. A few so oddly shaped they could be mistaken for failed sculptures. The rain hasn't stopped the villagers. Out they go in cloaks and smocks, checking plots, adding compost, retying the little fences made of sticks and hope. You join them, boots sinking slightly into the soft ground, as someone jokes that the potatoes are probably happier in this weather than the people are. Well, someone else adds they are from the Andes. Bit of drizzle's nothing. And just like that, someone brings up Peru, the potato's original homeland. It's strange how quickly curiosity has caught fire here. A boy in a soaked tunic runs up and tells you that he heard potatoes used to be purple. Another swears they grow better if you sing to them. You suspect he just likes singing, but the logic holds. A seed, after all, doesn't care what motivates the water. In one cottage, a woman has made a map. It's rough and wobbly, but it shows the potato's path from the Andes to Spain, across Europe, through war and famine, and finally here to this rainy patch of countryside. She's pinned it to the wall with pride. So no one forgets, she says, that we didn't invent it, just welcomed it. Historians still argue about which European country first embraced the potato with open arms. Some say Ireland, others claim Germany. But France, despite its slow start, seems to have made the most noise about it, thanks in large part to Parmentier's relentless cheerleading. And yet what happened in this village, it wasn't policy. It wasn't science. It was storytelling. You hear those stories everywhere now, tales of the wreck growing more colorful with every retelling. One version now includes lightning. Another claims the ship's figurehead was a carved goddess holding a potato in each hand. A child insists the ocean itself spat out the cargo out of spite. You say nothing. The truth's less important than the love. At midday, the rain lets up. Steam rises from the fields as the sun peeks through the clouds, golden and shy. That's when a new visitor arrives, a priest from 2 towns over. He's not here to scold or question. He's heard of the miracle village, as he calls it, and wants to see the fields for himself. He kneels, scoops up a handful of dirt, smells it, smells. Holy, he jokes, but only half joking. That night, he leads a brief service beneath the tree. Not a full sermon, just a gathering. He thanks the land. He thanks the hands. And then, somewhat unexpectedly, he thanks the bounty beneath the soil given to the humble by accident or design. You hear someone sniffle quietly. Another whispers, "We should make that a regular thing." Dinner is quieter than usual. Not somber, just reflective. Bowls passed more gently. Conversations softer. You try something new tonight. Mashed potatoes with thyme and a dash of vinegar. It's strange but comforting. Like memory with a twist. You head to the beach before bed. The wreck is just a rumor now, sunken timbers, sand-covered planks. But standing there looking out at the silver dark sea, you feel something ancient under your feet. Not haunted, rooted. This place isn't just home to potatoes, now it's a story that wants to grow. And across the water in places you can't see, yet other people are starting to hear it. A village that turned shipwreck into supper, dirt into legacy. A place where no one thought potatoes would matter, and yet here they are, tucked into cellars, painted onto doors, whispered about in cities. You turn and walk back slowly, boots crunching over wet stone firelight, winking in the windows ahead. The fields lie still, the roots are sleeping, and above them the stars shine down like crumbs of salt scattered across the sky. You wake to fog so thick it feels like the air has forgotten how to be clear. It curls low over the fields, slips through doorways, and mutes the world like a wool blanket wrapped too tightly around your ears. But it's warm, unseasonably so, and in the strange still hush of morning, the potatoes seem to be humming. Not literally, of course, but the leaves glisten with dew and tilt just slightly, as if stretching. You walk the rows, slowly brushing fingertips over the tops. There's a calmness here, a rhythm. Plant water, wait. And when the wait is over, food. Reliable, predictable, almost miraculous. In the square, someone's building a drying rack, wooden lopsided but functional. They're hanging thin slices of potato like laundry, to last through winter, they say. A week of sun, and it'll be travel food. Another man has taken to smashing his boiled potatoes into flat discs, drying them on hot stones. They crunch like bark, but store like gold. You pass a cottage where someone's teaching two children how to wrap potatoes in leaves before burying them in embers. More steam this way, she says, and the skin doesn't split. One of the kids asks if potatoes can be grown on the moon. No one has an answer, but no one laughs either. News from other villages is trickling in quiet, marveling, cautious inquiries. A rider from a southern parish arrives, asking for a demonstration. Our yields are poor, he says. We heard your fields are full. The villagers gather to show him their plots, not with pride, but with patience. They explain the rows, the watering, the curing. They give him a sack to take back. Start with these, they say. Save a few to plant. Inside the chapel, something new appears, a carved relief behind the altar. Not the Virgin, not the saints, just a stylized potato vine curling around a loaf of bread. You overhear the priest explaining to a visitor, bread for the soul and root for the body. He smiles. Balance. It's odd, but also perfect. Historians still debate how quickly the church embraced potatoes. Some say priests resisted them for decades. Others point to villages like this one where theology bent to necessity. The truth is likely both. But here, no one sees contradiction in blessing both soil and stew. Hunger changes doctrine faster than any council ever did. You find yourself sitting by a stone fence at midday, chewing a wedge of something new, what the baker calls potato biscuit. It crumbles in your mouth, salty and rich. He's experimenting with grinding dried slices into flour, not as smooth as wheat, he admits, but sweeter, and it keeps forever. He plans to bake enough to last through winter. As the fog finally lifts, you catch sight of a new building going up near the edge of the village. It's not big, just beams and thatch for now, but it'll be a shared cellar, cooler, deeper, for potatoes and peace of mind, says Gerard. No one forgets last winter. You nod. It's not just storage, it's insurance, security. Later that night, you attend a quiet dinner at a neighbor's home. The fire is low. The food is simple roasted slices, root vegetables, a tart made from leftover mash. But it's the company that makes it feel special. Stories are passed like bread. Someone recalls the first wreck with a flourish. Another jokes that the real miracle was anyone trying to eat the potatoes at all. You catch yourself smiling. Because it's true. The story has become folklore. The wreck is myth now, less tragedy, more origin tale. The ship that brought salvation, the sea that delivered a second chance. Before you sleep, you take a walk beneath the stars. You pass rows of dark fields, each one holding quiet promises. In every furrowed line lies a season's hope, not grand, not glamorous, but dependable. You think of all the things potatoes have given this village, food, yes, but also rhythm, purpose, even joy. You pause at the memorial stone again. Someone has left a tiny sculpture atop it, two potatoes carved to look like clasped hands. It's crude, charming, and deeply human. You sit beside it and breathe. The air is full of earth and smoke and soft night. There is no rush, no fear, only roots growing slowly in the dark, waiting to rise. You wake to the low rumble of wagons creaking down the village path. The sun hasn't fully cleared the hills yet, but the air carries the crisp edge of coming frost. Harvest is nearly done, and the fields are tired rows of dark soil turned and emptied, the vines yellowing, curling in on themselves like old parchment. It's a quiet kind of triumph, the kind that doesn't shout but sighs with relief. Down by the communal cellar, there's a line. Families taking turns stacking sacks of potatoes inside, organizing them by type and size, layering straw between them like treasure chests full of winter. Someone's brought chalk and drawn smiling faces on the outside of the bigger ones. One child names her favorite Sir Crispalote. The name catches on. You lend a hand passing sacks from cart to door. The cellar is cool, a little damp, and smells like earth and burlap. Inside, someone's lit a candle so they can see. There are already over 100 sacks nestled in rows waiting. It feels less like storage and more like a bank vault for comfort. Each bag a deposit, each potato a promise. At midday, the village square fills with chatter again. Not celebration, not exactly. Just people sharing ideas, plans. A man suggests growing even more next year and selling them to nearby towns. A woman proposes drying them and turning them into a soup mix to trade through the winter. A boy wonders if you could wear a potato if you tried hard enough. His older sister rolls her eyes. Let's stick to eating them first. The baker arrives with something new again, flat cakes made from shredded potato herbs and lard. He calls them galettes de racine. They're crispy on the outside, soft on the inside, and vanish faster than he can make them. He shrugs, clearly pleased. I haven't seen anyone fight over food in months, he says. This stuff, it keeps peace. And that's something you start to notice now, the absence of tension. Where there used to be complaints about rations, about shares, about who got what, there's now a quiet current of generosity. No one hoards, no one hides. It's like the potatoes have spread more than calories. They've spread cooperation. Later in the day, a group of young people gathers in the old barn to rehearse a play. Yes, a play. Someone's written a dramatic retelling of the Shipwreck, complete with lines like, "Oh no, our sacred tubers, and curse you storm of fate." It's ridiculous. It's delightful. A wooden spoon is being used as a spyglass. A potato is the lead actor. You peek at the script. There's a monologue in Act 2 titled Ode to the Humble Spud. It rhymes. Badly. But when the oldest actor stands up to recite it, people listen, even laugh, even cheer. You look around the barn and realize that somehow the fear of famine has been replaced by creativity. Potatoes have become fun. Historians still argue whether this kind of local culture building was widespread. Some say only a few villages truly embraced the potato in this way. Others believe it was everywhere, just poorly documented. After all, who writes down potato plays? But the spirit of it, that's real. That's something you can taste and hear and feel in the room. The priest shows up halfway through the rehearsal and ends up playing the ship's captain, mostly because no one else wants to memorize the line, "Secure the tubers. We shan't go down starchless." He flubs it on purpose. Everyone laughs. By sunset, the fields are quiet again. The fire in the center of the square is lit. People drift in with warm bowls, small flasks, and mismatched blankets. The stars begin to pierce the dark, and for a while, no one says anything. They just sit, eat, let the warmth settle. You find yourself beside Gerard again. He's holding a small, rough carving, a potato, of course, but this one has wings. "It's dumb," he mutters, but keeps turning it in his hands. "I guess I like thinking something watched over us." You don't tell him it's not dumb. He already knows. You just sit with him while the wings catch firelight. And as the night deepens, the village exhales in one long breath of contentment. No fear, no hunger, just full cellars, full bellies, and the knowledge that whatever winter brings, they'll face it together. You wake to the sound of birds, not just one or two, but a whole mess of them squabbling over something in the village square. Turns out someone left a half-eaten potato galette on the bench, and now it's a buffet. A goose struts in like it owns the place. You laugh quietly and pull your cloak tighter against the brisk wind. The seasons are shifting again. Autumn is nearly gone, and winter waits just past the treetops. Out in the fields, only the hardiest plants remain. Most plots have been cleared, the soil left to rest. But even with the harvest complete, the village hasn't slowed. If anything, there's more energy. A kind of hopeful hum you can hear in every conversation, every fire-lit kitchen. The potato isn't just a survival food, now it's a foundation. A symbol, a surprisingly versatile lifestyle. Inside one cottage, a man is building a spinning drum out of wood and iron. To wash the skins faster, he explains. The soil clings tighter than my in-laws. His wife snorts and hands him another spud. Even labor has become lighthearted. It helps that everyone knows exactly what's at stake and exactly what they've earned. You spend the morning helping rearrange the shared cellar. It's already packed, but now someone's decided to sort by shape. Round, oblong, spiral, lumpy. There's even a small shelf marked looks like animals. One is suspiciously pig-like. Another has been named Monsieur Duck. You're not sure who started this, but no one's complaining. Later, at the edge of the village, a group of teenagers is working on what they're calling the Potato Library. It's a series of crates and shelves set up in the old goat shed, each one labeled with growing notes, recipes, drawings, and even short poems. You read one aloud, root of gold dressed in dust. Grow you must because we must. It's oddly profound. Gerard stops by and adds a small book of his own, water-stained and held together with string. It's just my notes, he says, shrugging. Didn't think they'd matter much. But now I guess we're part of something bigger. He places it gently on the shelf like it's a holy text. And it does feel bigger now. You've heard whispers of villages further south copying their methods, of soldiers talking about that place with the clever fields, of noblemen asking how to plant their own emergency crops. The villagers aren't aiming for fame, but the story is traveling all the same like a root system unseen but spreading far. Historians still debate how grassroots movements like this affected broader agricultural reform. Some say local knowledge had no real impact compared to royal decrees. Others argue the opposite, that these small, stubborn efforts were what turned potatoes into a staple. What no one disputes is the effect it had on people who lived it, on lives transformed from empty plates to full cellars. At midday, someone rolls in a barrel of preserved mash. Thick salted meant for travel. Trade batch, they explain. The next market over said they'll swap us wool. You watch them scoop it into cloth-wrapped portions, tying each one like a gift. A child nearby starts humming the now familiar ode to the spud tune. You don't even mind the off-key notes. Even the architecture is changing. Several homes now have low stone alcoves by the hearth, perfect for slow roasting. One family is building an outdoor fire pit just for potato feasts. We'll need the warmth this winter anyway, they say. Might as well add dinner to it. That evening, a visitor arrives, a quiet man from the coast, bundled tight, carrying a map and a few oddly shaped potatoes. He doesn't say much, just watches, takes notes, then finally asks, did it really start with a ship? Someone hands him a warm bowl and says, it started with hunger. The ship was just how it got here. As night settles in, the first true cold of the season creeps in with it. You feel it under your sleeves, in your boots, even as the fire flickers close. But this time, no one's worried. The homes are stocked, the cellars full, the community whole. You sit by the hearth, watching embers pulse like the slow heartbeat of the village. Someone pokes a potato wrapped in foil deeper into the coals. It'll be perfect by the time the stars are out, she says. And sure enough, when the stars do appear sharp and silent overhead, you peel that foil back and bite into something soft, rich, and impossibly satisfying. It's just a potato, but also somehow not just a potato at all. It's memory, it's resilience, it's the taste of a place that refused to go hungry quietly. You wake before the sun this time, not from noise or cold, but from the kind of stillness that tells you snow is coming. You step outside and breathe it in clean, dry, and full of promise. The sky above is heavy and low, like a thick quilt stretched over the world waiting to drop its first flakes. The village is quiet, but not asleep. Smoke already curls from chimneys, and in the square, someone's lighting the communal fire pit. Not out of need necessarily, just tradition, habit, the kind that brings people together, whether they mean to gather or not. You pass the bakery and catch a familiar scent, this time something new. A pastry stuffed with mashed potato sage and something sweet. Apple, you guess. The baker grins. Pear, he says. But the apple guess is closer than most. He hands you one. It's strange and perfect, somehow earthy and festive at once. The first snowflakes start just after breakfast. Fat and slow, they drift lazily down like the sky is shrugging. Children shout and race to be the first to stomp across the dusting fields. A few adults join them, kicking up tufts of white and laughing louder than they mean to. You see a boy toss a snowball miss entirely and fall over giggling. In the early afternoon, the meeting house doors open. Inside, it's warmer than usual. A fire crackles in the hearth, and people are bringing in potatoes not to eat, but to show. Winter wonders, someone calls it. There's a table for the largest, another for the weirdest, a third for best name, which currently includes entries like King Tuber Dirt Baby and the Wrinkled Duke. You help a girl display a potato shaped like a heart. It grew like this, she insists, eyes wide. You believe her. It's slightly squashed, a little cracked, but unmistakably heart-shaped. Someone leaves a ribbon on it. Not a prize. Just recognition. One woman, Mireille, gathers a small group and tells the story again. The wreck. The storm. The unexpected cargo. But this time she embellishes. Adds a scene where the potatoes leapt from the hull. Describes how the first villager to eat one was struck by a vision of abundance. Of course it wasn't like that, she finishes winking, but wouldn't it be nice if it was? The group nods, because it would, because the true story, while powerful, has already become something more. A myth, a memory with corners worn soft by telling. It's how stories survive, and like the potato stories, thrive in dark places, pushing up through soil and silence until someone pulls them into the light. Historians still argue over the line between history and folklore. Was the ship real? Almost certainly. Were the villagers this poetic? Maybe not. But in this moment, none of that matters. What matters is that they remember, and that remembering has made them stronger. That night, the snowfall deepens. You walk past rows of homes glowing amber through their shutters. Inside, you catch glimpses, bowls being passed, blankets being unfolded, small hands being dried by fires. You hear singing, not hymns exactly, but songs about winter and roots and warm things buried deep. By the edge of the village, the communal cellar sits quiet, snow gathering gently on its roof. You open the heavy door and step inside just for a moment. The air is still and cool, but not lifeless. Sacks line the walls. The stone floor is dry. And resting atop one of the burlap piles, someone has left a small wooden figure, a potato with tiny carved wings and a smile. You light a small candle and place it beside the figure. No one sees. No one needs to. It's just your small act of thanks for a season survived, for a harvest well stored, and for the absurd miracle that a shipwreck once made everything possible. When you return to the square, the fire is still going. People have gathered around with mugs and stories. One child asks if potatoes can dream. Someone replies, only of being eaten by someone who loves them. You laugh, and the warmth spreads, not just from the fire, not just from the food, but from the knowing this strange, lovely thing you've all made together, something quiet, resilient, rooted. Like the potato, you wake to silence, but the good kind, the thick, cottony kind that snow brings when it finally settles in for the season. The village has been blanketed overnight, each rooftop crowned, each fence post haloed, each potato patch slumbering under white. You open your door, and the cold kisses your face like an old friend. It's quiet, yes, but not empty. The world has simply hushed itself, letting winter take the lead. You crunch through the snow toward the center of the village. The path has already been stomped by early risers, mostly children, judging by the size and chaos of the footprints. A few adults have started clearing the walkways, not because they need to, but because it gives them something to do with their hands. You help for a while, tossing snow with a shovel that squeaks against the cobblestones. By midday, the clearing turns into a snowball fight. It starts with one kid, then another. Then Gerard, yes, Gerard, gets pelted in the back and turns slowly like a man ready for justice. He grabs a scoop of snow the size of a loaf of bread and lobs it with impressive accuracy. The square erupts in laughter, and for an hour or more, the whole village forgets anything ever tasted bitter. Afterward, they gather inside the meeting house, dripping and red-cheeked, passing around mugs of warm cider and platters of roasted potatoes. Someone's added cloves and nutmeg to theirs. Another has made a kind of spread-a-mash, whipped with garlic oil and chopped greens. It's bright, a little sharp, and absolutely delicious. The baker demands the recipe. "Swear to me on your spud," he says. Someone begins carving a small wooden plaque, "First snow of the potato year." No one defines what a potato year means. It doesn't matter. The words feel right. A little silly, a little sacred, just enough to mark the moment. Later, a young woman named Lucille sets up a table in the square with scraps of parchment and charcoal nubs. "Write down your favorite dish," she says, "and how to make it." By sundown, the table is full. Boiled, baked, crisped, stewed. There's even one labeled "accidental pancake." You write yours too, roasted with ash, buttered by kindness. Historians still argue whether communal cookbooks really existed in villages like this one. But if they didn't, they should have. Because here, now, these recipes feel like spells, warm, edible protection against the cold. Food passed hand to hand becomes memory, becomes story, becomes survival. As night falls, the square is quiet again. Snow muffles everything but the occasional crackle of firewood and the rustle of fabric as cloaks are tightened. You sit on the old bench beneath the tree, now laced with frost, and watch as a group of teens hang lanterns made from hollowed potatoes. They glow like little moons. One boy tells the others that if you whisper a wish into a potato lantern before it's lit, it might come true. Another rolls her eyes but whispers anyway. Then another. You do it too. You don't speak it aloud. You don't need to. As the lanterns sway and flicker, someone begins a slow, familiar tune, the half-serious song about tubers and storms and waking up warm. Others join in, some humming, some harmonizing awkwardly. It's not perfect. It doesn't need to be. At the edge of the gathering, the priest stands with his hands folded. He's not leading, just listening. You see him smile softly as the music lifts. And then snow again. Fine, soft, almost invisible flakes that dance in the lantern light. No one moves. No one speaks. It's the kind of moment you can feel settle into your chest like warmth, like memory, like the knowledge that you've come through the hardest season and still have laughter to share. You head back home through powdery silence. Behind you, the lanterns bob gently in the wind. Ahead, your door waits, your hearth glows, and the scent of something simple, salt smoke starch, drifts from the kitchen. The snow keeps falling, and somewhere beneath it, deep in the soil, the next season of potatoes is already sleeping, already dreaming of spring. You wake to a thin ribbon of sunlight breaking through the shutters, pale and cold, but determined. Outside, the snow has stopped. The rooftops glisten, and the sky above the village is the color of worn linen. You stretch pull on your thickest socks and shuffle toward the door, half expecting the usual morning quiet. But today the stillness carries something. Charged. Not anxious. Not loud. Just waiting. The village is already stirring. Smoke curls from every chimney. Paths have been swept. The snow, though deep, has been flattened by so many boots, it's begun to look like a well-worn floor. You catch snatches of conversation. "He's back," someone says. "2 wagons, maybe more, from the city. With paper." And just like that, the calm of winter is pierced by the return of something distinctly modern. Letters, ledgers, ink. The outer world hasn't forgotten about this place after all. The wagons roll in just before noon, pulled by shaggy horses and led by 2 city men wearing cloaks too clean for this much snow. One is tall and stiff, all protocol and posture. The other smiles easily and wears gloves with patches sewn on the palms. They dismount and begin unloading crates filled with sealed envelopes, jars of wax, and scrolls of Yes Potato data. They're here to document, to measure, to count. The ministry, the tall one says with a sniff, is taking a keen interest in agricultural resilience. Gerard rolls his eyes and offers them mashed potatoes. The stiff one declines. The patch-glove man eats 3 servings. The villagers are equal parts amused and suspicious. They watch the men measure sprouting rates, record storage humidity, and draw awkward sketches of the communal cellar. A young girl asks if they're here to arrest the potatoes. Her father laughs until he coughs. One of the city men, perhaps sensing tension, starts asking questions not about data, but about recipes. "What's your favorite dish?" he asks a group of children. "Can you describe it?" One child offers soft in the middle, crunchy around the edges. "It tastes like being warm." He writes that down very seriously. You sit near the fire with a group of older villagers and listen to them discuss whether the outside world will try to take credit. They ignored us for years, one says. Now they want to write it down like they invented it. Another shrugs. Let them write. Just don't let them cook. Historians still argue how much formal recognition these rural efforts ever got. Some records are precise charts and names and dates. Others are suspiciously vague, as though entire villages were footnotes in someone else's story. But here, now the villagers write their own names in charcoal on the cellar walls beside their best potato drawings. We were here, one scrawls, and we were full. The evening brings a quiet sort of celebration, not for the city visitors, but for the first proper thaw. The snow on the southern hill begins to drip. A patch of brown earth peeks out beside the chapel. Children rush to poke it with sticks, as if encouraging it to grow faster. Inside, a new dish is being served, thin slices fried until they curl like petals dusted with salt and dried herbs. Someone jokes they're potato roses. Someone else bites one and says, "Too pretty to eat," then eats 3. The priest says grace that night with a slightly broader smile. May our tables stay full, our roots grow deep, and our stories stretch beyond this hill. People murmur, amen, and then unprompted begin adding their own endings. And may no one ever call them just potatoes again. And may city folk learn how to roast at least once. And may winter stay this kind. You wander outside after dinner, the air just on the edge of freezing. The sky is streaked with orange and gray. In the square, the city men are quietly sipping from mugs. You hear the tall one say, "There's something here. Something we didn't expect." The patch glove man nods. It's not just the crop, he says. It's the people. You think of that, how something so small, so plain, managed to root itself in not just the fields, but the hearts of everyone here. It grew in cellars and kitchens and even in songs. You doubt the ministry has a column for that in its ledgers. Back home, you brush snow off your boots and open the door to warmth. The fire is still glowing. On the table sits a simple bowl filled with golden wedges dusted in herbs. You eat one. You close your eyes. It still tastes like enough. You wake to a knock. Not loud, just firm and deliberate enough to say this isn't urgent, but it matters. You sit up, pull on your cloak, and open the door to find Mireille standing there with a small basket and a sheepish smile. Meeting in the square, she says, "Nothing dramatic, but they want your ears." You follow her past familiar snowbanks, now patchy and thinning. Spring isn't here yet, but you can smell it beneath the frost, beneath the ash, in the way the wind feels less like a slap and more like a nudge. When you reach the square, there are about 30 villagers gathered already. Most hold something in their hands, baskets, folded papers, wrapped bundles. At the center stands Gerard, who clears his throat and says, "So, we're a story now." He's right. The 2 city men have left, but they left behind a flurry of letters and copies of copies, requests for planting instructions, praise from ministers, and even an invitation to send a representative to the royal court. The phrase "potato miracle" is used at least twice, which makes Gerard wince every time it's read aloud. They want someone to speak for us, he says, to explain how it happened. There's a pause, and we thought maybe we should all decide what to say. What follows is not a debate, but a sort of collective memory exercise. People begin offering pieces of the story. One says, "Start with the hunger." Another adds, "Don't forget the ship." A third insists they include the part where the priest blessed the stew pot. Laughter ripples. Mireille holds up a crinkled page. On it are hand-drawn boxes like chapters, each titled in thick charcoal, "The storm, the root, the first bite, the ash, roast the lantern snow." It reads like scripture, or poetry, or a bedtime story. She shrugs. "This is what I tell the kids." Seems to hold up. You sit and listen as they piece it together. It's not just facts, it's feelings. It's fear and cold, and the thrill of figuring something out together. It's people remembering how it felt to cook enough food to share, to sleep with a full belly, to plant something and not wonder if it would die. Someone asks if potatoes count as magic. The priest says, anything that saves you when no one else does, call it what you like. No one argues. Historians still argue, of course, about origins, about authenticity, about whether this village's story was unique or just the one that got attention. Some accuse the ministry of romanticizing. Others say the villagers played it up for effect. But sitting here, hearing these voices, you know it was real. Maybe not tidy, maybe not mythic, but real enough to warm a winter. That afternoon, you help copy the final version of the village's story. The scribe writes carefully, the ink freezing between lines. You read over their shoulder. It began with wreckage, as many things do, but the wreck gave root, and the root gave rise. We ate, we shared, we planted, and in doing so, we became more than hungry people. We became people with a future. By evening, copies are being passed around, some to be sent with messengers, others kept in homes. One is tucked behind the chapel altar. Another is placed in the Potato library, now reinforced against leaks. A child asks if it will be read every winter. Only the parts that make you hungry, someone replies. Later, near the fire, the villagers begin trading favorite memories. The first frost, the first roast, the first time a potato was given a name. Someone sings a verse of that strange little harvest song. Another joins, then another. No one is leading, no one needs to. You walk through the village one last time before bed, tracing your steps along paths carved by weeks of snow and weeks of hope. The air is still cold, but not biting. Just crisp enough to keep you alert, just warm enough to make you trust that the season is turning. You pause by the communal cellar and notice a new carving above the door. It reads, "Here sleeps our second harvest, the one made by choice." And in that quiet moment, you realize something. The first harvest was about survival. This one is about intention. They've stopped just reacting. They've started planning. You wake to birdsong, real layered spring bright birdsong, not just a lonely crow cawing over thawing fields. The air through the window is still cool, but there's a softness to it now. The kind that says, dig soon, plant soon, trust the soil again. You step outside and pause. The snow has melted in earnest. The path is mud, the grass tentative, but the potato rows, those long furrowed lines you helped shape with your own hands, are ready. The villagers know it too. One by one they emerge from their doors, baskets tucked beneath their arms, smiles not quite contained. Today is planting day. No festival, no banners, just bodies in motion, boots stomping down mud, gloves tugged on. A child passes with seed potatoes pressed tight against his chest like secrets. You follow him to the field where others are already kneeling, bearing promise after promise into the soil. Their movements are slow, reverent, like they're tucking in children. Jared shows you a new tool, a strange wooden scoop he's carved to space the potatoes just right. If we treat them well, he says they'll treat us better. You nod and press one into the earth. Cool, firm, a little rough. You cover it carefully, whisper a half-thought prayer. It's silly, but it feels right. Throughout the day, the rhythm holds. Dig, place, cover, repeat. The fields stretch long with fresh lines of planted hope. No one talks too much. The sound of work is enough shovels, boots, the creak of baskets. By midday, the sun breaks free from the clouds and lands warm across shoulders and necks. The chill finally loses its grip. At lunch, no one eats alone. People gather in patches of grass, sharing boiled slices and last year's stored mash fried into little cakes. There's laughter, even a toast or two. One boy proposes a new tradition potato birthday to celebrate each year's first planting. Someone agrees too quickly. Someone else says it should involve hats. Within minutes, the idea becomes a certainty. Later, you find yourself back at the Potato library. Someone's added new pages planting guides based on moon cycles, weather notes, and a section titled Strange Advice from Old Farmers. Your favorite entry simply reads, "Talk to your tubers. They get lonely." Inside the chapel, the priest offers a short blessing for what we've planted, for what we've shared, and for what lies below the surface unseen but growing. You see people nodding. Even those who don't believe in blessings seem comforted by the words. Historians still argue about the spread of potato cultivation, how fast it moved, who made it happen. Some say state policy did the heavy lifting. Others say it was stories like this one, villages leading quietly, planting not just food, but faith. Whatever the cause, the result was the same. Empty fields turned full. Empty bellies stayed that way less often. That evening, a visiting scribe from the next province arrives to document the planting. He's young, an eager quill, always twitching. He asks dozens of questions. What does it feel like to eat something you buried? He asks one child. She frowns thoughtfully. Like you tricked the ground into being kind, she says. He writes that down twice. You sit by the fire with Gerard after sunset. The fields lie dark and silent behind you. They're sleeping again, he says. Every year, I forget how patient they are. He tosses another log into the flames. We planted survival the first time. Now, we plant peace. You watch the fire dance and realize what he means. Potatoes fed the stomach first, but now they're feeding something else belonging. Confidence. The belief that this land, this life can be shaped, not just endured. Before bed, you visit the cellar one last time. It smells of straw and soil. The stored sacks are fewer now, but that's fine, because today the next harvest is already begun. You run your hand along the wall where the villagers sign their names. There's a new one now scrawled just beneath yours. We are not what we lost. We are what we grew. You walk home under a sky so full of stars, it looks like someone spilled flour across dark velvet. The air is cool, but not sharp. The ground is wet, but not dead. You feel it with every step. Something's waking, something's working, something's already growing. You wake to bells gentle this time, not a warning, not even a call to gather, just a slow, regular chiming that drifts across the fields like sunlight across floorboards. It's the village clock, recently repaired, newly celebrated. It only tells time approximately, but no one seems to mind. It tells the right time in a different way. You step outside and the air is rich, earthy, and damp, not cold anymore, not quite warm. A fog clings low to the ground, not obscuring, just softening. Through it, you see the fields again. Those same lines, those same rows. But now you know what's hidden underneath them, a future being shaped underground. In the square, someone has set up a small table with scraps of parchment and an ink pot. The sign reads, "Tell us what changed." It's not for records. It's not for any official. It's for the village. People stop by to write a line or two. We learned to plan meals. We stopped fearing empty. We stopped eating alone. Even the children add their thoughts. One writes, "I got taller," and another simply, "I remember feeling full." You smile, and for a while just sit nearby, watching the page fill itself slowly like a bowl. A man from another village arrives around mid-morning. He carries a letter with the seal of a university stamped and waxed, folded in thirds. He's been sent to learn how this place solved hunger without instruction. That's how he puts it. Gerard shrugs. "We didn't solve it. We just fed each other." The man looks confused. Gerard repeats it slower. The man writes it down. Over lunch, the conversation turns to next year's planting. Not just potatoes anymore. People talk about barley, beans, carrots. But potatoes stay at the center, not from habit, but from trust. They got us through the worst, Mireille says. Now we let them stay for the best. Someone brings out a bundle of letters sent from other regions, parishes, requesting guidance, farmers asking for advice, even a soldier who wants to grow potatoes in a camp garden. The villagers gather to read them aloud, passing each page like a fresh loaf of bread. It feels surreal, like their story has become a river they didn't know they were building. You help Lucille sort through the responses. She's creating a second potato book, this one for outbound knowledge. She organizes it like a cookbook, but with side notes like add laughter when possible and stir until the fear subsides. It's practical. It's poetic. It's exactly what the world needs. Historians still argue over what defines progress. Is it new tools, bigger yields? Or is it something smaller, like a child growing up in a village where hunger is no longer the loudest thing at the table? You'd argue for the latter. You suspect many would if they stopped to think about it. That evening, the priest hosts a gathering not for worship, just for words. Each person is invited to speak one sentence about what they've learned since the shipwreck. Some are funny, some are quiet. A few are shaky with emotion. Gerard says, "I learned potatoes make better neighbors than fences." Mireille offers you can survive winter on roots, but you live on stories. Even the priest adds one, "I believed in miracles. I just didn't expect them to be boiled." When it's your turn, you speak without thinking. We planted food. We harvested each other, and no one laughs. No one questions it. They just nod because they understand exactly what you mean. As darkness falls, someone sets a single lantern atop the hill, one of the old hollowed-out potato shells from the winter celebration. It's more ritual than utility, but when it glows in the dark, you feel something settle in your chest. Not closure exactly, continuation. You walk home, slowly passing windows lit with candlelight, catching whiffs of butter, herbs, wood smoke. You pass the communal cellar, its doors shut for now, but sturdy, watchful. You pass the chapel, the library, the muddy field, paths where footprints stretch in every direction, already fading into the thaw. And you realize something: this isn't just the end of a crisis. It's the beginning of a rhythm. The wreck was the first note, the hunger, the drumbeat. And now comes the melody. Gentle, rooted, growing. You wake to sun. Not just light sun. Golden and generous, streaming through the window like it missed you. Outside, the fields glow under its touch. The frost is gone, the mud drying in patches, and every step you take feels like walking forward instead of standing still. The village has survived winter, not barely, not just, but fully and without apology. It's planting day again. Not the first, not a trial. This one is intentional, organized, celebrated, anticipated. Tools are sharpened. Sacks have been sorted. Potato varieties now have names, descriptions, even reputations. The red one that roasts well. The fancy boil. The one that looks like Gerard's nose. He doesn't mind. He actually finds it flattering. You join Murray at the edge of the new plotland that was once considered too rocky, too dry. Now it's measured, cleared, and already half-seeded. Last year, we didn't even touch this part, she says. This year, we're daring it. You kneel and press a sprout into the earth. It feels different now, not like an act of desperation, like an investment. In the square, a new marker has been placed, carved from the wreck's last surviving beam, smoothed and etched by dozens of hands. It reads, "From sea to soil, from root to rise." There's no author, just memory, just gratitude. Someone started writing potato poetry again. Lucille's put together a small book, Tales from the Tuber. It includes odes, fables, planting songs, and one particularly strange story about a heroic spud who saves a village by rolling into a witch's soup pot. It's very popular with children. The priest announces a new festival day, the Feast of the First Dig. It will come every year at the first visible sprout. No sermons, no ceremonies, just a meal open to all. Potatoes, of course, must be served in at least 3 forms. More is fine, he adds. Less is sacrilege. By midday, the scent of soil and garlic fills the air. Someone has reinvented gratin, adding cream mustard and breadcrumbs. A young couple cooks side by side, smiling in that new spring way. The community gathers to eat, not with the urgency of hunger, but with the joy of plenty. Gerard walks the edge of the planting rows, now moving more slowly, hand tracing the edge of a basket. He nods as he goes, inspecting not just the plants, but the people. You hear him murmur to himself, "We're not farmers anymore. We're stewards." You suspect he doesn't think anyone hears him. The afternoon passes with digging, planting, laughter, a small musical performance by 3 children with sticks for drums, and a moment when everyone pauses just to listen to the breeze through the sprouting leaves. It's not dramatic, but it's enough. And by nightfall, the village glows not just from lanterns or fires, but from something warmer, something shared, a hum, a thread running through every home, every cellar, every seed. You walk the paths once more, taking in the season's new rhythm. The potato fields are no longer a lifeline. They're a legacy, a choice made and remade every day, a story passed from hand to hand, voice to voice, root to root. The shipwreck feels far away now, like a prologue, like something necessary but no longer defining. The real story isn't that the village was saved. It's that the village learned to keep saving itself. You pause at the hilltop and look down over the rooftops, the glint of metal tools, the soft green rose. Someone beside you whispers, "It's beautiful, isn't it?" You don't answer. You just nod. Because it is. The fires burn low now, not out, just softened. A warm haze drifts through the windows of every home, carrying the scent of roasted herbs, baked bread, and that unmistakable, comforting whisper of potatoes. Outside, the stars are rising, slow, confident. They scatter across the sky like a promise written in light. The fields below sleep in silence, each row holding a quiet rhythm, each furrow a breath. And beneath, the soil roots are finding their way, as they always do, unseen, unhurried, unstoppable. You walk slowly now, every step softer, every sound gentler. The village no longer needs to rush. The fear is gone. The worry has softened into routine. Life, for all its storms, has found its anchor. Somewhere, a child is tucked beneath a wool blanket. A parent tells the story of the ship, the wreck, the first hesitant bite. But the child is already asleep before the part where the potatoes came ashore. That's okay. They'll hear it again and again until it becomes a part of them, until it roots itself too. You return to your home, the door creaking just slightly as you enter. The fire has dwindled to embers. You settle beside it, warm wrapped, listening to the soft hiss of ash and wood. The story is quiet now, but it isn't over. It's just resting, just waiting. Like all the best things, good night.